Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Breakdown Podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ota, and today we are going to talk about the deeper cost of leadership breakdowns when it comes to your offers. So, I know a lot of you out here are entrepreneurs, and when we're talking about leadership and the cost of leadership, there is a lot of cost associated in entrepreneurship in relation to what we're putting out on the internet. And before we go down that rabbit hole, let's just talk about the discomfort maybe you've been feeling around your offers. You know, the part of you that knows that your offers look right on paper, or your sales page is good and everything's good, but something just feels off. You tweak the copy, you rebuilt the funnel, you hired a team, and yet something's just not landing. Like maybe it's not converting and things are not clicking into place the way that it should be. So here's a question for us today. What if it's not your offer? What if it's the energy underneath it? So today I want to show you what your business model is saying behind your back and why your audience is responding accordingly, right? If you've been on this podcast long enough, you know that we talk about the four archetypes or leadership personas, and those are your CEO codes. And today we're going to be diving into the four main personas and how it relates to your offer. But before we do that, I want to explain why this is so important. So I've always been able to read people, not just what they're saying, but kind of feeling where they're coming from. And I've been able to feel like what they're avoiding, what they're afraid to ask for, what they're trying to protect. And when I learned the disc back in corporate, it was like it gave me the language for what I already knew, what I could already feel in the room. So essentially, a structure for the patterns I had been watching for years, right? I grew up in a tumultuous home, you know. My parents were divorced. I went through a lot of what we would call today trauma, which was not trauma back in the 80s. It was just kind of normal. And because of that, those of you who understand or been introduced to the world of psychology and empathy, right, you know that empathy is built through being exposed to trauma and triggers because you can like feel that and you have a nervous system response when it comes to navigating your space. And so because of this coupled with the disc, I was able to, take the disc what I learned and un- because I also understood people, it finally put a name to the things that I was feeling. So I could see how leaders were moving. I could see, you know, what they defaulted to under pressure because now I had the name for it. And, looking at how their teams responded when they did this, when they had this knee jerk reaction, and then their team responded to that reaction. It's like, whoa, it all made sense. And the things that I've picked up in corporate and how I was able to lead there, I was able to bring those gifts over into entrepreneurship. And as I was working with my clients, a lot of them who are entrepreneurs, I started to see these patterns that they were having in their life and their business. And those of you who don't know, I started off as a coach, as a health coach. And that was grounded in NLP, not so much the like diet and nutrition and stuff. The school that I went to where I became a master health coach was based on NLP and mindset and everything that leads us to make the decisions that we make about food, the way we make decisions around weight loss and exercise. And so that led me to just doing regular life coaching. I got another certification as a Christian life coach. And Then again, seeing patterns, I learned about the four temperaments and I realized, oh, the four temperaments also align with the disc model. And so just layers upon layers of learning more about people in general is what gave me the skills that I have today. And this is why I revamped the quiz. So if you have taken it in the past, you can go to kylieota.com/quiz. The quiz is totally revamped and we are doing things at a deeper level now. And so all of the different layers are now added on and it's so juicy. I would love for you to take it. Anyhow, back to this, um when I brought this into entrepreneurship, it was less about, reading management and, being able to anticipate needs, on the job before people needed them. It became, okay, I'm reading offers, I'm reading messaging, and I'm reading teams again, but smaller teams, launches. And again, I started seeing the same thing over and over again that when my clients were building offers, even though they were using a specific strategy, like whatever guru that they had invested in, they bought some program, protocol, whatever, they were implementing the strategy with this twist that had their personalities attached. And I realized they weren't building offers from strategy. They were building from survival. They were building from reflex. They were building from that nervous system response. Sometimes, and right, the nervous system responses, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which we'll go into today, stems from fear and the fear of trying to prove that they were good enough. And when we do that, when my clients are building from that space, the audience, they could feel it. They could feel it in their energy. They could feel like we're going to the different types later, but they could literally feel the energy behind and like what was working when they were in a good energy, same strategy, same everything. Like hardly any changes in copy, hardly any changes in anything except, they were tapping into their shadow side of their style and not their strengths anymore. And this is when we would start to see the patterns where offers weren't selling how they used to, people weren't buying the way that they used to. And yes, there's economy and all of those things, but when we get to the heart of it, it was who they were behind the scenes that was driving these sales or lack thereof because of their personality style and how each one reacts and has these knee jerk responses. So, again, right, when we're talking about offer suite, we're not just talking about your products, your product line, right? It's really a reflection of how you're leading when no one's watching, right? What you're doing behind the scenes, right? Everything from the pricing, positioning, structure, it's all telling a story and it's telling the story whether you mean to or not. And that story is coming straight from your nervous system. So, who's with me? Are you ready to dive in? You're like, Kylie, I'm so curious. Tell me how it's related to nervous system because I'm not following. We will get into that. So, like I said, right, you have the four main personality types. You have the driver, the influencer, the shepherd, and the critic. And we're going to start with the driver first. And I talked about nervous system responses. There are four main nervous system responses, right? The main one, you guys probably know, fight, flight. And then you have the other two that are equally important, but not as talked about, the fawn and the freeze. So the first two, driver and influencer that we're going to talk about are fight and flight. So this hopefully should stick because it's relatable. So when we're talking about the driver, also the other element, the other layer that I've added on to the quiz, which now has become the CEO codes, is we're layering in the time wheel, right? Time, ideas, money, and energy. These are the four resources that all entrepreneurs or people, honestly, in general, but entrepreneurs, those are the four resources that we're constantly managing. And those are what I say the drivers a lot of times in our business. So for the driver, their driver, so meta, but their driver is money, right? So they operate from the money quadrant. And not only that, their nervous system response is fight mode. So combining all of that, right? These people build fast. If you are a driver, you build fast. You stack value, right? You're sprinting toward your next launch, like, and you think it's going to finally give you breathing room, but your team is tired, right? The go, 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 do more, be more, all the more, right? Everyone's tired, everyone's exhausted. And when you're exhausted, when your team's exhausted, your clients can feel that. They're feeling that energy. And what's also happening is your when your clients see you or even potential clients see you and you're having this like go, 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 go energy, what you're essentially telling them is, come on, keep up with me, keep up with me. And it's like how, like, you're asking them to, sprint this marathon with you when they even haven't stepped in yet. And so, what your audience feels is urgency and not safety. And that knee jerk response, right? To add more, fill the space, don't slow down. That results in your audience feeling like they're more of a transaction, right? They're just a number on a spreadsheet, they're dollar signs, and that transactional energy, like, them feeling like a number before they ever became a client. So, again, if you're always driving to the next thing, and you keep trying to do more, and the more you sell, you get less results. This is probably what's happening behind the scenes. So, moving on, the influencer, right? This person is navigating the nervous system response of flight. So think of it as, the social butterfly where it's like flittering from here to there to there to there. And I mean, on the bright side, right? You're full of vision. If you are an influencer, you are a visionary and you sparkle when you talk, and everyone is so enamored with your energy, high vibe. But on the downside, you have so many ideas, right? And so the influencer sits in the ideas quadrant on the time wheel. And you have so many ideas, but they never have a chance to take root, right? There's no rhythm. It's no through line. It's just move, right? Movement is good, but you know, you have to land the plane sometimes, right? The butterfly has to land, right? And when your audience doesn't know where you're leading them to, honestly, it's because you don't know either. And they can feel that. They're like, oh, I'm here, I'm there. Oh, I'm doing this thing now, I'm doing that thing now. And a lot of times it's because as an influencer, you don't have the same energy, right? It's like, oh, like when you get a hit, it's like, yes, this is the thing. This is my offer. Go. And then it's like, oh, when you launch it and people aren't as energetic as you are when it comes to your offer, you're like, oh, well, this is a dud. And so you lose momentum and then you shift. But honestly, it's the people who used to react and respond to your positive energy that aren't reacting anymore and aren't responding with you is because they're like, wait, they're just confused. They have whiplash, you know? There's all of the excitement, but no anchor. And right when you have that, that's your knee jerk reaction is to pivot, right? Pivot, 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 right? Ross Geller in the house. Anyway, right? So you have the propensity to chase the next idea and you avoid follow through and you avoid structure because structure makes you feel like you're in a box and like how are you supposed to move and like have this high vibe if someone's always trying to tie you down and put you in a box. But here's the kicker, right? You have to have some kind of grounded energy to draw the clients in to know that they're safe, they're being held. And, with too much, too many offers, too many things picking back and forth. I mean, you can have a lot of offers, you can get all of these hits, but what it needs is a through line, right? You need some kind of anchor so that, the people that follow you know that, hey, she might have all of these different offers, but it's anchored in this one principle, right? So that's when they don't scroll away, they continue to watch and they also buy because you probably have a lot of lurkers. They scroll, they watch, but they don't buy. And once you fix this leak, those it should start to get better when it comes to your offers. So we went through the driver, went through the influencer. The next on the list is the shepherd. And this nervous system response is the fawn, right? You give, give, give. You give so much. And then on the flip side, you don't give to yourself. So what you probably have is a low ticket offer, but it also comes with high access, something that other coaches are charging high ticket for, like a mastermind or one-on-one, but you're still in the low ticket range and you're thinking, how can I bring my prices up? But here's where the shadow side kind of gets involved is y- you give, 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 and it's all heart. You're holding everyone, you're holding space, but no one's really holding you. And the offers that you're putting out there, honestly, they don't feel like you anymore. They don't feel like the business you were called to build because some guru probably told you, like, hey, this is good, like this sells. You should go all in on this. And because you put more stock into what everyone else thinks of you, right? Um, this and also this the shepherd sits in the time quadrant. And so the time quadrant, if you've taken the CEO compass, the sub parts, that make up the time quadrant is really based on relationships, how you relate to people. And I've talked about this before, right? Time in the time quadrant, it's all about OPP, other people's problems. So you're solving problems for everyone else and at the same time causing more problems from yourself because you're the soft place to land, but it's costing you everything. Right? It's costing you your voice. It's costing you your profit margin. It's costing you momentum because you're not building from a place that sits in your heart. You're building from what everybody else wants. And so here's how it shows up in your offers, right? Your audience feels the closeness. They love it. They love that close proximity. They love that, hey, anytime I reach out to you in the DM, even if they're not a client, maybe they're just in your free Facebook group or they're a follower, like, oh, can I ask you a question? And you end up coaching them in the DMs and they never buy, right? So, or even if they do end up buying, say you're in the DMs and you get them to agree to a sales call, then they get on the sales call and like, yes, like I need all of that, right? One, you probably are coaching on the sales call, giving away too much. And so you may not even get to the pitch at the end, but if you do get to the pitch and they're like, yes, this is what I need, but I can't afford it. I'm struggling. I'm going through all the things. I really can't afford it. So what do? Right? Your shepherd's heart is going to go and lower the price, right? And you're like, and it's really hard for you to do your messaging because like I want everyone to like I want to help everyone. So, right, you widen the door and there's this proving of generosity that happens. You're like, well, I need them to love me. And that's where that fawning response come in, right? And honestly, they do love you, but they don't rise with you, right? When you're trying to grow, when you're trying to scale, even when you're trying to coach them, probably in your containers, they give you a lot of excuses and they're like, oh, I mean, yeah, but it's so hard. I remember when I was health coaching and there were certain people who fit, the shepherd personality and like my driver, it's hard hitting. And I'm like, you need to do the thing. Like, y- right? You need to just be more disciplined. You need to do this, that, and the other. It's like, when did Kylie, it's so hard. And, until I learned that this was part of my personality style and it was okay to be this personality style and how to be who I am, but also um, tell people what I think in a way that is not offensive because there have been circumstances where I stepped too hard into my driver personality and I've chased people away where, they get offended when I've said things in a way that doesn't match. And a lot of times right, because these people sit on the opposite sides of the wheel, right? The driver sits in the money success side and like we're driven like, okay, results, results, results. If we're not doing something that's going to give us an ROI, I mean, it could be money, but some kind of return on investment, then it's not worth the energy. So, you know, and for me, a lot of times, like that caring, that nurturing, that shepherd vibe, it wasn't there in my communication. And so when I was speaking to people who have the shepherd personality, they're like, oh, like, like you could feel them close off, you could feel them getting offended. And I had to learn how to soften my tone, but also have that, you know, um, the velvet hammer, as it were, where it's soft and I love you, and these are the things that you need to do. So there's just that, right? If you are a shepherd, you don't have to step out of your personality type. I would never tell you to do that. But how can you work with your, the way that you love people? How can you work with that so that they rise with you and they actually see results when you're working with them? Okay, so last but not least, we have the critic. And, I just kind of went with the disc names so that it was easier for people to remember, right? Driver, influencer, shepherd, critic. And honestly, the critic, it's for me, I was like, I went with the name critic finally because it, while it sounds kind of harsh at times, it really is, right? um we're not talking about the cynical, although the cynicism is the shadow side of the critic. The critic really is like, if you look at a critic in the like like a critic in a newspaper, what do? They come in, they refine, they put structure. um and so that's why I went with the name critic. So all of that to say, because the critic is um so engrossed in perfectionism. Like they want everything to be perfect, right? If you think of the critic's personality, it's like they critique and they refine and they want everything to be perfect. But in that perfectionism, there becomes a paralysis and they freeze. And when it comes to offers, right, you got gold sitting in your hard drive, but you're waiting until it's a perfect draft. And then you have like maybe these half built funnels because you're waiting on copy or you're waiting for like it's not good enough. It's not getting the essence of everything that I'm trying to create. And so, right, when you're sitting in this perfectionism paralysis, you're not posting the things, and you're in this swirl of I just want to wait until everything's just right. The timing never comes because you are your own worst critic, right? As a critic, you are your own worst critic. And it will never be as perfect as you want it to be. And when we're talking about wounds and triggers, right? This trigger comes from an overly critical parent, probably when you were younger, and nothing you did was ever good enough. And then just to give your parents or your authority figure some grace, it's, you know, they're critical on themselves because nothing was ever good enough for them. So when it comes to you, who was probably a mini me of themselves, right? Like you are part of their world. You are part of their identity. So their criticality on everything that you did, everything that wasn't good enough was a direct reflection of who they are. And so I say that to say I did that to my children as well. I'm like, why are you doing that? You're making me look bad. And it was all about me, me, me. So if I can give you a piece of advice or just a softening of this part of your personality, the critical energy that you received from someone in authority, honestly, was not directed towards you. It was directed to that part of themselves that they saw in you that made them see a mirror of imperfection. And imperfection in you was a direct reflection of imperfection in themselves. And therefore, the criticality became much harsher. And again, right, as children, we don't know how to deal with that, but how our nervous system learn to respond or adapt to that is to make sure we will never get criticized again. We will never be told, you're wrong, don't do this, don't do that. And so we don't put our offers out there, right? But if you don't put your geniuses out there, oh, and so this is the other thing, right? The things that you hide from the world are your deepest, like it's at your core. Like this is what you're called to produce and what you're called to serve the world with. But when you had presented that to someone in authority when you were younger, like you shared a little bit of your heart with them and you got smashed, then you're like, mm-mm. So your nervous system learned to keep that under wraps. So a lot of the genius that you have, the gold that you have in, your Google Drive sits there because you're afraid of the backlash and, the critics that you think will come at you. But when that happens, people never see your genius because it's something that you're hiding from the world. And that's also why you tweak again. And, it's like this paralysis. It's literally paralysis. And that's why I put freeze as a response for the critic because you literally freeze when it comes to putting out your like top of the line genius out there, the thing that really lights you up. You're sitting on that paralysis. And when like people can feel your genius, right? We're all feeling beings. We were created to feel. And people know that you're a genius. Like you're an expert on the thing that you're an expert in. And but why people are hesitant to buy from you or why you can't scale is because the thing that you're putting out there is not your zone of genius. It's just, you know, the thing that you're good at. And so you monetize that thing that you're good at because you're so afraid of putting your genius, like your true genius out in the world because you're afraid of being criticized for it that like people are like, there's something in there. Like, I know she's an expert, but y- they feel like you're not all the way there. And you're not putting out 100% of yourself to the world. And so they wonder why you're hiding. So there's that lack of trust that builds up. So, all of that to say, right, each personality type has their own quirks, their own triggers, their own ways that they default to. And I say that with love that if you're not selling at the rate that you think you should be, right? Because when we're talking about leadership and entrepreneurship, who we are as a person innately really determines how we show up online, how we show up to our potential clients. And if you are looking at like, why is my business not growing? Why can't I step into that true CEO power that I know that I have and build the business that I want to build? A lot of times it's not your offers. It's what your offer is carrying or not carrying, right? It's that frequency that it's carrying. And right, the higher you get on the frequency scale, that's the more attractive, the more magnetic that you become. And the lower that you go on the scale, so right, the higher you get up on the scale, the frequency scale, that's joy, that's enlightenment. And then the lower parts is fear, anxiety, right? If you're feeling those things, it's a frequency. Your audience can feel it. And when you're creating out of this lower frequency, like as a driver, if you're creating from anxiety that you don't have money, that you don't feel successful, that anxiety is baked into your offer, that anxiety is baked into your copy. Um, and as the influencer, right? Like, say you have a high vibe, say you're in joy, but you're not grounded. Like that joy is not grounded. It's not, um, it's not fully baked in to your offer. Your audience will feel that too. And most of what you've built was shaped in a moment that you were trying to fix something, right? Maybe your income, right? For the driver, your identity for the influencer, self worth, a lot of times for the shepherd. Um, and then for the critic, it's that burnout, right? Because you keep refining and you're stuck in analysis paralysis. It ends up baking itself into the structure of your offer. And you have to remember, right? Your audience doesn't just read your words, they read your frequency. And if what you built doesn't feel rooted, doesn't feel grounded, they're not going to step in. And so, right, this is the work that I do with my clients inside the offer vortex. The offer vortex is this space where we don't just restructure your offers, we look at the energy that it took to build it, right? We look at the patterns, we name the patterns, and like building it off of that, right? The triggers, um, all of that. I call that the swirl, right? So we coach through the swirl. We embrace all of it because a lot of times, like if you work with a business coach and whatever you say out of your mouth, they take that, they help you build an offer. And at the end of the day, you're like, that's not it. Doesn't really feel like me. Doesn't really feel like this is what I'm called to build. And actually, like what is really part of my genius is to see the through line. So a lot of times my clients come in and because of this nervous system pattern, here I'm going to bring it all home for you. Because of the nervous system pattern, whether it's the driver, offer, like hitting the audience hard, they're not getting to the core, right? Because it's a lot of this surface level things that's happening and a lot of surface level things that are happening with the influencer. They're like, oh, like I have to be high vibe and like putting out offers and like a lot of that is surface level. But when you get to the shepherd and, the critic, a lot of that it's there's a lot of offers that are created from the heart space, from the internal space, but they have the depth, but it's lacking that. And so we really focus on why you're not putting out the offers that you're called to produce. And we look at it through the lens of these nervous system responses, and we clear that first. Then once that's cleared, then it's like, okay, now we see it. Now we see the through line, because a lot of times what's happening is the offers that you currently have out there is not the ones that's on your heart. And so how we bridge that is, we cut through the layers and we get to the heart of what you really want to offer. And I've had a client where um she's come in and she does art, but she's also a coach. And what we did was we helped her to fuse the two together, because that honestly is my genius, the fusion. I'm very good at pattern recognition. I mean, look, I took the disc, I took the four temperaments, I took attachment styles, nervous system responses, the time wheel. I took all of that and I was able to see, like, as these patterns were revealed to me, they were layered and layered and layered on top, right? So I have the ability to read the patterns. And so not only am I able to read the patterns in, people and personalities, I'm also able to read the patterns in your offers. And right when we talk about the person behind the brand and the offer, and then we talk about what the offer is. And also, I have a very good operational background as a project manager in oil and gas, and also as a project manager, behind the business of a lot of my clients. You take all of that, the logic and the emotional pieces, and you fuse that together. It becomes what I call the offer vortex. And a lot of times we've heard offers are funnels, but if you turn that picture of the funnel into a 3D, what does it look like? It's a vortex, right? It's a vortex. And what you want to do, because I've been working with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? You have your lead magnet, and that's the top of the funnel. You have their lead magnet. And then, like, as they're going deeper and deeper, if you look at it as a vortex, right? You keep magnetizing people into your higher ticket offers, your more intimate containers, right? And you keep bringing them and drawing them into the vortex with you. And this really happens after we calibrate your leadership back to the truth of who you are, who God created you to be. Because honestly, no amount of strategy will stick if you're still trying to build from that version of you that doesn't feel safe being seen. So that's why we start with the nervous system response. That's why we start with understanding your CEO code before we start working on your offers. And, if something stirred in you while listening to that, you have to trust it. And if you're interested, right, you find me on Instagram, send me a DM with the word vortex, and we'll get together. And honestly, maybe it's time. It's time for you to clear the noise and finally build your offers in a way that actually feels like you. So if you feel called to get into the vortex, if you feel called to restructure your offers, and you know that you've built your offers from a place that was a nervous system response, a knee jerk reaction, and now that you've heard me talk about how it shows up in your offers, I mean, this is the call. This is where you come in and we do the work. Is it messy? Yeah. Is it hard? Yeah. But is it something that you need to do to get to your next level? Probably. So if that is you, let me know. And for any of the links that I've mentioned on today's broadcast, they will be listed in the show notes. And yeah, you can book your offer vortex session with me. And I can't wait to help you really decode this and really get you into space where your offers feel like you, your offers feel like home, and your offers feel like home, not only for you, but also for your potential client. So with that, that is today's episode of the Leadership Breakdown podcast. And I hope to see you guys again next time. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Breakdown podcast. If you're ready to break free from the overwhelm and finally create the impact you've been working so hard for, I want you to grab the Leadership Legacy Playbook. This guide gives you the exact strategies to lead with purpose and leave your mark on the world. Don't keep putting off the legacy that you want to build. Grab the link in the show notes and start building your legacy today.